we're very excited about this second episode. The first one got a lot of rave reviews from all our audiences across the globe. And so we started with our first speaker who represented a leading Indian institution. The show is now going global with our new guest joining us from no other place but London. We have Mr. Aakif Tanveer, who is the director at the CECOS College, London. And he's joining us today for this chat show, EduAction with Arpit Badjatya, as we call it, tea and talk over edutech. The show has even more relevance today because we have the gentleman from the UK and India, and I think both are tea sipping countries. So it's definitely tea and talk over edutech. Before I start for today, I would like to greet all the audience that has joined us from different parts of the globe. Thanks for taking out the time. And I would like to start with an introduction on our esteemed guest, Mr. Aakif Tanveer. Aakif got his bachelor's in computer systems engineering from GIK Institute and his master's in advanced computing from the Imperial College London, the prestigious Imperial College. And then after an internship at the University of Central Florida, he started his work as in a leadership role in CECOS College London since 2008. He also is an owner of K. Gems Day Nurseries, so very well entrenched in the education domain, right from, as they call, cradle to career, so from nurseries to college. And welcome, Aakif. It's an absolute honor to have you. Thanks for consenting to be part of the show. Why don't you, just say hello to our audience and we can start.
Yes, thank you very much, Arpit, for the invite. It's a pleasure to be it's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, we would hope to have a good conversation with your audience and yourself today.
Wonderful. Aakif, before we start, I think let's celebrate tea from UK and India for the show today. I hope you have your cuppa around you, and I think we'll be sipping on it as we talk today and discuss various topics on education, technology, and the combination thereof. So let's start without further ado, Aakif. Please walk us through your journey. I read in your bio, a pan-international experience covering, I think, Pakistan, the US, UK, and many other countries. How has your journey been in education? And tell us more about your interactions with technology during this time as well, because our show is definitely focused over EdTech.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, first of all, that's my second cup for the day. I've already had one this morning with my breakfast. Thanks to this show, I'm going to have another cup right now as we talk. In terms of technology in education, as a sector, I think what we feel is education's not always been at the forefront of using the full force of technology that's been available to us. But over the recent times, particularly with the help of COVID and a number of years even before that, we've seen that a number of the sector overall has embraced technology, and we are seeing great results as a consequence. And what that means is if there is the technology available to us, the other sectors have sort of sometimes been ahead of us. For example, one of the sectors that always used technology to the full has been the banking sector. And it's created, or it's given them immense results. It's meant a lot of efficiency. This meant cost saving. This meant efficient enterprises. And I think as a sector, education, we are sort of moving forward now and benefiting from the use of technology. And at the end of the day, what the work where we do, we look at our mission and vision or our values as an organization and see how we could achieve that in a better way. And if obviously there is a tool at our disposal, there is that technology that we could use to better serve our customers, then we should embrace it. So at the end of the day, as an organization, the mission of CECOS is to create a better future for all through education, enterprise, and employment. And I think technology is the best tool that's available to us at the current time.
Thanks for that, Aakif. But if we were to kind of go a little more specific, tell us about your journey from the US, UK, etc. And what are some of the things that you saw in the last 10 to 12 years, your personal experiences, which you would like to share with your audience? And then obviously some other experiences as the leader at the CECOS College London.
Yes, I think starting from my internship at it was at the computer vision department at the University of Central Florida. And what was quite interesting to see was the cutting edge research that was being done at the time. And this is back in 2007. Back then, a number of people, the things we hear about right now in terms of virtual reality and the augmented reality weren't really a common term for everyone. And what that meant was that they were at the forefront of everything. And currently, obviously, I think a lot of us are familiar with terms like metaverse, which obviously Facebook has launched. And we sort of start to see that in our lives. And some people, starting from games like Pokemon, for example, people now see how augmented reality would look like. So when I was there, obviously, this was some of the things that we worked on back as early as like 15 years ago, and basically the computers. It's all about training the computers to do some of the work that humans do, and it's all linked with automation, and it helps. It can have uses in a number of sectors. But I worked in my master's in Imperial College. We worked on using augmented reality in surgery, in improving the surgeon's experience. For example, if a surgeon's got imaging on a piece of paper or a different device, but the patient's in front of them, what augmented reality does is, if the surgeon's wearing that device, they can see that image right onto the patient. So you can sort of see through the patient while performing an operation, and basically it results in better accuracy, it results in better performance, and at the end of the day, it could save lives. So not just makes things efficient, it could eventually end up saving lives. At CECOS, obviously, we started. CECOS goes back to 1998 and has been operational in London and in the sector of further education as well as higher education. It's obviously a family business that I'm part of. So I've been part of CECOS since 1998. And because of my background in technology, what I brought to the company was to make sure that we are using technology to our advantage. Because again, like I said, sometimes we feel that in the education sector, we don't always fully use technology like some other sectors do. So what I've always focused at CECOS was to make sure that we are using the latest tools that are available at our disposal to better our mission. At the end of the day, if there are tools that are available to us to improve the service we can offer. And what's the outcome? The outcome is to make sure that the students are learning better, they have better prospects in their future. And how can technology help us? Technology can help us to make sure that we are delivering a customized experience for those students. First of all, we start with understanding those students' needs, because every student is different. You can't just have the old styles of like lecturing the same content to all the students, because it's not going to result in the greatest learning. So rather than focusing on just the teaching, the focus is now on learning. So rather than focusing on what the teacher is saying or doing in the class, we have to focus from the student's point of view. What learning is being achieved by those students, by each and every one of them. You can't be a good teacher if your students aren't learning. You can have a PhD, you can have any amount of knowledge in the subject sector. If you can't translate that into learning for your students, then unfortunately, it's not good enough. So as an organization, as leaders in education, our role has always been to ensure that the students are getting a great experience. They are learning what they're meant to do and more. And again, like I said, technology is the best thing that we have because it allows us to, first of all, know our students. First of all, know their weaknesses. So we know that what are the gaps in education, what are gaps in their learning, and that's where we can deliver tailored content. We can actually understand, because if you don't know what the weaknesses are, how do you address them? How do you work on something that you don't know? So what obviously I brought to CECOS was, first of all, in terms of management, we want to be using technology to its full potential, to make sure things are smooth, to make sure things are streamlined, to make sure things are running efficiently, because there's no point in having cumbersome procedures, because as an organization, you will be left behind if you don't follow with the time, if you don't follow all the tools, or if you don't avail all the tools that are at your disposal. So I made sure at Seeker that we are a dynamic organization. We are using the tools available to our disposal for the betterment of our customers, which are the students. So we look at everything from the students' point of view. Are we delivering value to them? Are we giving them a good experience? Are they going to be better off after they complete their education with us? What are their future prospects? Are they achieving their full potential? Because there's no point in shipping out half-baked graduates into the market who aren't really fit for the modern world, who can't really join the marketplace in the best possible way. So those are the questions we ask ourselves. Those are the questions we always reflect on our mission. We always reflect on our values, which are inclusion, achievement, excellence, and integrity. So we make sure that everything we do conforms to our values. So what I personally find is that using technology is our best bet in terms of making sure we are delivering on our values, we are delivering on the mission that we are set out to do. So at CECOS, um, as an organization, I made sure that we are at the forefront of what's happening in the sector, because I can draw on my experiences from different countries as to what happens there. Because at the end of the day, today, we are living in a global world. It doesn't matter where you're based, you have got access to the expertise across the globe. So you do have to make sure that you are using the available resources that are to us. In terms of CECOS, obviously, I've had the leadership role since like a number of years, and I've made sure that we are always a dynamic organization. We're not someone who's reluctant to change. We've got people who look forward to improving themselves, and that's, I think, the key, the best thing that we could do as an organization to survive.
All right. I appreciate you sharing the insights, and it's very clear that your values around inclusion, focus on the student, delivering quality to the end user, which is the student or the end customer in your case, is very, very evident, and technology has played a key role on it. Now, obviously, if you look back at the last 2 years, there has been as I call it, a seismic event in the edtech world, with COVID hitting every single educational institution on earth. And hitting, when I say hitting, it means forcing them to rethink how they're going to operate in the 21st century, forcing them to think about what tools, what technologies, what systems would they be using as they drive their institutions forward. So in your mind, why has automation or technology become important in the wake of COVID? And what are some of the recent changes that you have brought about in your institution with respect to that? If you can share that for our audience, I'm sure they will learn from your story. And one of the reasons for organizing EduAction is to deliver some real insights to all our audiences, which they can take back and action it in their day-to-day life, rather than, we just talking about theories and different prophecies, but it's more about actionable insights which our audience can take back home. So Aakif, please tell us about some of the
Yes.
recent measures at CECOS.
Yes, definitely. I think COVID has been a wake-up call for a lot of organizations. Some were better prepared than the others, but it's very good to see that a number of almost all organizations have responded well to the challenges faced by COVID. And at CECOS, we're very proud to be very responsive, to be very quick in sort of adopting. And I think it's all about the culture an organization has. We've always had a culture where people have been open to learn new things, to train, and that's helped us because not many people had used Zoom, for example, before COVID, but that's where we delivered all our classes online over a long period of time. So what that meant was that we had that in our team we had those ingredients which we needed to survive during COVID. And again, I think like you said, why do we need to focus on automation in the post-COVID world? The fact is that if we don't, then there is a threat to the survival of the whole sector. It's not going to be the same if we don't respond to the changing needs, the changing habits, or the changing demands of our customers, which are the students. And we've seen this in other sectors as well. Like I said, some sectors have used technology better than the others in the past. For example, the example I gave was the banking sector has always used technology in a very good way. Similarly, the airline industry always is at the forefront of that as well. And it's given them immense advantages. For example, in the banking sector, almost all of us are now used to using mobile banking. In the UK, we see less and less of local branches because not many people need to go there like they used to go like 10 years ago, for example. And what that meant is those organizations are stronger because they don't really need to rely on operating so many branches. It's meant a lot of things that they do are automated. If I can go to a branch and do everything on a machine, or even better enough on my mobile phone, then it means that the organization is performing efficiently and the customers are the ones who are eventually benefiting. But similarly, we've had some organizations who have not performed as well or who have not responded to the challenges of the modern times. For example, in the UK, even retail giants are under threat because they can't compete well with the online competition. So we've got brands like Debenhams, which have been operational since 1778, so which has been operational for centuries, and they have now gone bust because they could not compete with the giants like Amazon. Similarly, so our customers have obviously varying needs. We're not saying that higher education customers are always going to look for something online, or they're always going to look for, they're not going to, a higher education setup will not suit them. But we are living in a different time. People prefer Netflix over routine channels, for example. And if we don't provide them that opportunity to be flexible, to learn at their own pace, to make the most of their time, then we will lose our customers and we won't be doing the best service that we can. So I think to be as efficient as we can be, it is inevitable that we rely on technology, we automate our processes, because at the end of the day, we will be providing savings to our customers, we will be providing better learning opportunities to them, because even any sector can face disruption. Higher education sector, for example, or further education, we've got concepts like MOOC, which is obviously the massive open online courses. And if the higher educations like us still stick to old traditional style classroom learning and teaching, they're not going to compete. What's stopping from a massive provider online delivering degrees in the future? Where do we stand then? So I think as a sector, we all need to evolve. We all need to provide what our customers need, and that's flexibility, that's improved learning, that's value for obviously for money, that's value for what they're doing. So that's obviously answering the why. Why do we need automation? Because we need to be sustainable. We need to be in this game, and we need to provide the best value. And again, I would link everything with our mission, because we need to provide them good opportunities for employment and enterprise. We want to create graduates of the future. So that's why we need to do all this, because otherwise we might be a sector that's left behind. Um, so in terms of obviously at CECOS, what we've done is we make sure that all the journey, we look at the journey of the student. So when a student it starts from admissions, and then when they attend, when they want to attend classes, we look at the scheduling. We then go on doing their day-to-day attendance, and then any student concerns, we look at obviously their welfare overall. So our task is to make sure that the journey of the student um, is smooth. The journey of the student, we don't have any hindrance. We want to make it as efficient as possible. And when we talk about being student centered, that's one of the big things that we work on at CECOS. We want to make sure that we are student centered. It's essentially like taking the student, thinking of a student, and building a college around it. What works for the student? So we don't really want the students to always fit into what we do. We want to try to look at what their needs are as individuals. So in terms of in terms of different areas, for example, let's look at admissions. What's our goal for admission? We want to be sure that our admission process is efficient, and most of all, it's fair. We want to be sure that we are upholding our values of equal opportunity and inclusion. So how does that work? For example, now we use academia for our most of our internal processes, and what that means is our admission process, as well as attendance and the scheduling, is done via the same process with the same software. And in admissions, what we do is, what's admission all about? Admissions about decision making on the available data. Because if you have, let's say, 100 places and you've got 500 students to pick from, how do you do that? At the end of the day, we as humans, we need to look at the data available to us and take decisions. So, or any system, any decisions is as good as the data available to them. So when we decide on admissions, we need to have all that data available. So what the software would do is to make sure we capture the right information about the student. We look at what their background has been, we look at what their potential is, and we therefore then decide on whether, first of all, we could deliver good value to the students, and plus we want to make sure that we are upholding our values. We are giving opportunity to the students from, let's say, low socioeconomic background. We are giving opportunity to students who might otherwise not be as likely to benefit from higher education or further education, for example. So it's about making sure that our process is efficient, and we are making use, the decision makers have got the right data available to them when deciding, for example, on admissions. And first of all, and then how does that work in our case? Because we've got a web app, for example, and where students can easily go and apply online. And what that means is, the student who may not always be able to come into the college and fill in physical forms can still apply. So it widens the net of people that we can reach, and therefore it allows us to stick to our values of inclusion and diversity, because then it means that no one's been left behind just because they could not, let's say, reach us, or they were not aware, for example. So it's basically using a number of things to make sure that we are adhering to the values and our mission.
Wonderful. So, in the context of technology, people always talk about productivity, efficiency, cost savings. I'm extremely glad that you have mentioned values like diversity, inclusion, fairness, which definitely technology brings to the table. It's a great equalizer from that perspective. And I'm extremely happy that CECOS College is kind of riding on all those values and really sticking to their technology roadmap. But coming to the first part of what I talked about just now, and I'd love to know it because you're one of the owners at the institution. Before investing into technology, um, many owners or educators would be circumspect about the fact that the investment may seem large, but will it yield returns for us, right? How have you solved that equation in your head? And has technology really delivered an ROI, a return on investment for the decisions you have made? If you can elaborate on this point, because usually the upfront costs for technology may seem large. Some of the softwares may be priced higher, and because they're intangible, there is that much concern around how much would it yield. When you're seeing an object, it's easier to say that, yes, if I buy this, I will get this benefit. But technology is a story that unravels over time. So have your decisions been able to deliver ROI? What kind of things do you keep in mind when you're buying technology or implementing technology? If you can share that for our audience here.
Yes, definitely. I think anything that makes our processes more efficient, what we look at is what's going to be the effect on our processes. Is it going to be worth it? And obviously, in the UK, the way we operate is we would, if we're using technology, then it allows us to be more efficient in terms of the number of people we might need to do a certain job. For example, if we needed, let's say, 4 attendance officers, and with having a software, we could have only 2, we only need 2 of them for a larger number of students, then it's a win-win, because we can invest, the investment we make in technology, sometimes it might appear large, but when you look at the cost savings, when you look at the efficiency overall, it's always worth it. So that's the management side of things. But when you look at the learning side, you have to also measure what your output is for the student. And if your students are attaining, if their attainment levels go up with the use of certain software in the classroom, then that is something that's priceless as well. So you want to, obviously, it might be hard to measure the attainment in terms of the ROI. Obviously, the management gains you can always measure, because as a college, we have increased our number of students at least 2-fold since we started using academia. So we can already see the gains, we can already see the ROI. And in terms of using the other technology in the classroom, for example, making it a smart classroom, we can see the improvement in student engagement levels. We can see the improvement we can actually measure their attainment improvement, the retention that we've had. So that makes it worthwhile. That makes sure that we are on the right track.
So you mentioned academia, which, just for the audience, I would like to share that it's the student information system, or the ERP, that CECOS College uses. But Aakif, are there other tools that you've used in this process, and how you've kind of derived value from those? If you can shed more light there as well.
Yes, there are. Obviously, what we do is in terms of using technology, we've got a number of other apps. For example, academia manages the biggest part of the student journey that we have, for example, starting from the inquiries and admission, and then to scheduling, and then leading on to, let's say, their attendance, for example, and then their graduation. So a big part of the management of the student life cycle is done by academia, which works very well. In terms of the classroom, we obviously use other tools. So the teachers have access to apps like, for example, Kahoot, Quizalike. Those are the sort of things that the teachers like to use in the classroom, which allows them to keep the engagement levels high. So we always are looking for opportunities wherever we can provide the student better learning opportunity. For example, we are using SimVenture, which is an app that allows the student to simulate a company process, like a business environment fully, which means that the student can practically run a business like a game. So that sort of process is what we find is this is going to lead to a lot more learning than if you were to sit down with a student and try to explain to them how do you manage your stock levels, your delivery costs, compared to when you do it like a game and you can actually put real numbers and see real-time results. So what technology does is these sort of apps and tools allow the student to see things visually and get a better understanding, as opposed to if they were just reading books or attending a lecture without much engagement.
Wonderful. I'm seeing that there are a lot of questions um, linked to some of the things that you've said. If it's okay for the audience, I will pick these questions at the last. We'll just go through some of the questions that we're discussing, and then I will take up the questions in the chat box at the last. So uh, another aspect, we talked about the ROI. We talked about some of the value benefits like inclusion, diversity, um, fairness, efficiency, productivity. Those are all great. Having worked with, hundreds of institutions in my career, delivering technology to institutions, there is one area that I have experienced myself, which is something that some institutions, or I would say a lot of institutions, forget to handle when they're adopting technology. At the end of the day, technology is the enabler. It's the people who get enabled. Technology is the efficiency gainer. It's the people who become more efficient, right? So there is a very human aspect to any new tech initiative at any institution, that I have seen, and that is true. So, Aakif, how have you managed the change in CECOS College when you have been implementing new initiatives? And, I'll recall one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite authors, Robin Sharma, who says, all change is hard at the start, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. Now, this messy in the middle part is the change management piece in technology initiatives, because uh, there are there's a likelihood that your teammates may get little circumspect. They may get concerned. Why is this technology being adopted? What will be the outcome? Can it really impact their job roles and responsibilities? Will I have to do more work than before, or will I have to do less work than before? There are so many of these human concerns which are real, which must be tackled by any leader of an institution based on the understanding that I have gained over the years. But I'd love to hear your take on it as to how CECOS College has handled the human aspect of change for any technology adoption.
Yes, I think the main thing that helps with that is to ensure there's someone leading the change, someone who can inspire the organization into doing it. And that person needs to be someone who's fully committed, someone who actually believes in it. Because when we set out to do this transformation, this transition over to academia, by that time, I had led the process of evaluating different options and looking deeply into what a system can provide us and whether that system is the right fit for the organization. So let's say when we look at going about actually implementing, eventually it's going to need 50 plus people, for example, to be on board. And I won't expect all of them to understand fully from the start as to why we need to do this or why we are doing it. So they need to know that someone they trust has done the background work, someone they trust knows that this works for them. So it means that if you have someone leading the change that has the trust of all all the relevant stakeholders, then this makes the process smooth and it gets them on board in a positive way. Because like you said, everyone might have their own concerns because we're all human at the end. Some might think that, oh, is it going to work better than what I had in the past? Is it really going to suit? So you have all those sort of emotions when obviously something big is happening. But at the end of the day, in an organization like us or even any organization, you need someone to lead the change, someone who can guide the whole team through the process, someone who actually believes in the process and can answer why we're doing it. So I think that's helped us really well during the transition phase, if I answered your question fully.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think what you've touched upon is a visible and trusted leadership for that initiative, right? That you've seen as the number one factor. Are there other factors you've taken, maybe small little steps, initiatives to, uh, to make your teams more comfortable, more positive about the change that's coming?
Yes, I think it's if you genuinely take into account their concerns, then this would make the process smoother. So what you're not doing is you're not trying to ask them just to follow you blindly, just because you believe in it and just because you think it would work. So if you genuinely have a consultation process where you actually take on board everyone's concerns, because then it's only going to work if you have looked into those sort of things already. If you know, let's say you have someone in the finance talking to you that this is how we do it and this software do it, and you have to take that on board, because if you don't, then whatever it does, as a leader, you might not know the intricacies, the all the detail that the person dealing with a certain thing day to day has. So you have to take their opinions on board, and then you need to be able to make those changes to actually get something productive done.
Sounds great. So I think the first point you mentioned was visible and trusted leadership. And I think the second one that you have shared with us is the creating a sense of collective ownership amongst everyone, right? So
Yes.
to really kind of hear them out, note down their concerns, tackle them with empathy and also understanding and creating and painting a positive roadmap for that adoption. Very nice insights there, Aakif. And that brings me to one of the more interesting parts of the show today. Let's get into a rapid fire. I know you have enlightened us on multiple topics today in terms of adoption of technology in the 21st century, post-COVID, some of the change management that you've done, some of the technology tools that you've personally adopted, the ROI equation, and so on and so forth. But let me get into a rapid fire round with you, Aakif, and we'll keep it nice and snappy. And just tell me, what's your favorite movie?
Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham.
Oh, that's wonderful. Your favorite personal technology tool. So we have talked about the technology you've used in the institution, but what's your favorite personal tech tool?
I really like Trello, which I use on a daily basis because it allows me to see what's. I use it on a number of ways. So Trello would be my favorite tool.
Super. This is a conversation that's happening between an Indian and a Pakistani who's sitting in the UK. We can't forget cricket. So what's your favorite cricket team?
Obviously, it's got to be Pakistan.
Which is the second favorite cricket team?
When I really like the Indian cricket team, and Kohli is obviously a star. So I obviously, when it comes to IPL, I know the RC Bangalore hasn't been doing great, but it's still a team I like.
Wonderful. What's switching gears? What's an educational institution across the globe that inspires you or the way you do things at CECOS?
In the UK, I really like how Oxford operates. So that's been an inspiration. And again, one of the things is in their work on people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and how they value inclusion and diversity. So those are the sort of things we really aspire to be doing as well.
Super. Have you borrowed any things or ideas or theories from Oxford and tried to implement it in CECOS?
Yes, I think we always look at, we're always in discussion with people who've been there, worked there, and researched there. And we do look at the approaches. And I think a lot of the time, obviously, we're a very different organization than them. So may not always be able to copy what they're doing, but it's about inspiration. It's about the philosophies that you want to work on and then implement in your own way. Definitely.
And lastly, in this rapid fire, what's a message for fellow educationists who have joined this call and otherwise as well?
I think my message would be to, first of all, not just for the educationists, for the students as well, to first of all find something you love and be an expert in the area, because there's no point being doing something in a half-hearted way. And that's, I think, something that can help pretty much everyone. You need to find something you love, and then you need to be doing it in the best possible way, because you need to have that motivation, that fire in your belly to drive you to be the best in what you do.
That's wonderful. Lastly, what's a book that inspires you?
I really like the Seven Habits. It was one of my early books that I read, but it still affects how I see and do things. So I think it's had a good impression. And another book I really like is The Slight Edge, which talks about how our little daily habits allow us to achieve bigger goals. So those are the ones I would always definitely recommend to the audience.
Very interesting. Thank you for answering those questions in a very sporting way, Aakif. And unfortunately, unlike some of the other talk shows, we do not have a hamper for you, but our best wishes to you. And I think we have covered everything that we wanted to from a perspective of Q&A today. But I'll now go to the audience questions, and then we can wrap up the show. We'll stick to our time, as we had said, 45 minutes. And I would devote the last 3 minutes to some of the questions that I see in the chat box. The first question is there any plan to add AI and deep learning in your systems?
Yes, we always aim to make things more smarter, because again, one thing we are exploring is to use the AI chatbots to answer the student queries, for example, because obviously a number of times what we happen is the student could be asking the same sort of questions. For example, if they need a certain service, then rather than an actual operator answering those in the first way, it could be answered by obviously an AI bot. Similarly, we are exploring other things in terms of how we make the most of the student assessment data. So there is a potential of using AI to gather insight into where the gaps might be. And that helps particularly when we look at a large number of students to generate where the gaps could be.
All right. The other question was, I think it's been covered after he raised the question about, you talked about the student benefits and using technology to make learning more personalized, more student-centric. But the question here is, how has it benefited other stakeholders in your institution?
I think once your students are learning well, then and that means they're happy, they're getting what they needed, and it inevitably helps the other stakeholders as well. For example, the staff, the colleague, the lecturing team, the management are all happy, because that brings us together. If the learning is good, then that's the outcome. If it allows the student to attain well, to improve their prospects of future employment and enterprise, then it does mean that we've done our job properly, and it's a win-win for everyone.
All right, since we are just at the end of the show, I'll take one last question from the chat box. Have you used any analytics on your available data to support your decision making?
Yes, I think when it comes to the analysis of the attainment data, that's where our team look at picking out what the relevant information can be learned from the data. Because like I said, a lot of it is about when we talk about technology, it's about data and technology. So we always want to make sure that we are using the data to the best advantage.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking all those questions from our audience. There are a few others, but I will ask our team to note them down, and we'll get back to the relevant people perhaps on email. Aakif, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Some really good insights for me, and I'm sure for the audience to take back home, mull over, and perhaps implement in their institutions or in their companies. I really hope you have a great weekend ahead. And before we wrap up the show, we can have, a cheers for the audience today, and cheers to CECOS College and EduAction. Thank you so much. And if you
Thank you
have
very
any
much.
last message for us or the audience.
Thank you very much, Arpit, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And yes, I think anything we can help you or the audience, we would be happy to work on that as well. And thank you for obviously the great work that your team does at academia. We're really excited and happy to work with your team.
Thank you. That will bring a cheer and a smile to all our team's faces. But thank you once again, and take care, Aakif. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, audience, for your time.